This is the maintenance video for the IT8000. It's the 3/8 Tie-Lok tie tool and controller. Today we're going to be taking apart the tool, replacing the wear components, and showing you some tips and tricks. First, we're going to start with the greasing of the components. We recommend doing this every 10,000 cycles to ensure that the components last the recommended portion. This Lincoln 5803 needle nozzle is required to use this. How we're going to do that is you just take your normal grease gun, fill it with the appropriate grease, and there is a port right here, and you just stick it in, press until you feel the ball detent pin go down, and then squeeze the lever about 1/4 of a squeeze. And that's all you need to do to grease that. Again, we recommend doing that every 10,000 cycles. The next part is where you're going to be greasing the knife. So we're going to take this front cover, squeeze it right here, pull it back just like that, and then grab your fingers on the front, and then you rotate it like that. To replace the knife, you will need to remove these two E-clips. We recommend replacing the E-clips every time, but if you are careful to not expand them, they can be reused. So this lower pin you will need to remove to allow access to the knife. The upper pin you will only want to move down just enough so that this arm can flip out. If you remove that pin all the way, you will have to line it up with the spring assembly again, which is a more difficult procedure. So now that we have that out of the way, we can push the knife up, pull it out. What we will do is we will apply grease to it, ensuring to get the grease into the grooves of the knife. You can also, if there's debris or shavings around, make sure that you are cleaning those off if you are just greasing the knife instead of replacing it. Or you can have a new knife and make sure you grease the new knife. So what you will do is the knife is one-sided, and so you need to ensure that the edge of the blade is in the proper orientation. So one side will have a sharpened edge, and that needs to go into this orientation right here. You are also looking for the holes at the top for the pin are sitting upright. If you have it like this, it's going to be a different orientation and it will not allow you to feed the band through. So place that through, slide this over, pop the back pin up, and now put the second pin through the knife, and then reapply your E-clips. And then you can put the cover back on, first sliding it through there, and then ensuring that the tabs are both in, and then pop it in. The other thing to improve the life of the grease is to also grease the linkages. So to do that, we will remove the side cover. Side cover comes off, and then we'll apply grease into this linkage right here, the involute slot right there, to allow for that. And then you can also apply grease right here, and then right here on that pin. And that will ensure that the cutting action remains smooth as long as possible. So next what we are going to do is get to the tension wheel cleaning, and you can also do this if you have a jam in the tool. So you'll pull this out, use it to push up the pin, pull the pin out, and this releases the pinch arms to drop them down. So those will slide right out. If you have a jam, now it's accessible with a pliers to reach in there and grab it. And then the other thing is now you can get to the tension wheel. So what we recommend is while the tool is still plugged in, you can take a wire brush and go into manual mode and slowly spin that wheel with the wire brush to remove any debris that has built up along with it. So while we are here, if you do not have the fitting for this Zerk grease port, what you can do is grease this manually. And all that requires is pushing out this inner pin and applying grease to this surface. And then you just push that pin back in. Now when we're putting it back together, make sure this hole and this hole are aligned. And then the other trick is that this tension wheel needs to be centered for this to go in properly. So it's recommended to lay the tool on its back, and then you can get these holes to line up, and then just drop the pin right in, and then attach the clevis, just like that. So now are we going to replace the head on the IT8000. So again, first grab your cover, pull it back, rotate it out. We are going to remove the screws for the side body here. So it's a 9/64 hex. There's going to be 8 screws on this. You can pop that off. And now this is accessible. So we will remove these clips. Drop the swing arm down. The other thing with these pins, if you remove this side, you can slide this pin out without having to take both of the clips off. So remove the pins. That's it. Now we'll need a 7/64 hex to remove these bolts right here. They are Loctited, so you will have to break them free. Anytime that you are replacing the screws on here, we recommend putting Loctite back on, as Loctite is single use only. So remove the 4. Now the head is free to come out, but it is still attached. So what we will do is go and remove the pneumatic access panel. Again, this is the 9/64. 5 screws here. And now you will find where that is connected. So if you follow the wires, you'll get to this point. You can remove that. And this one, there will be 2. Remove the tape and then fish them out. Just like that. You will buy this as a kit with the sensors already in there and the wiring done. So to put it back together, you take your new part, put it in position, feed these through. 2 black wires will be connected to the purple and red, make sure that you get the proper orientation. So you want the little clip right here and the clip right there to be on the same side for it to lock properly. You should hear a snap. Now we can put the maintenance cover back on. Make sure that as you're pushing it, you are not pinching any wires. So flip it over, be careful to not damage the wires and let it hang by the wires. And now this pin right here needs to go through this hole through here. This will require you to maneuver it in a way that it lines up correctly because it is not in the correct position as it stands. So first, we will take these screws. We recommend using new screws and then Loctite, of course. So apply a little bit of Loctite to the thread. So you will take your pin and you need it to be seen through. A tip that I like to use is you can take 2 Allen keys. If you go from the bottom and get it in the correct position, I would also drop the pinch arms down. So you can access it better. Like so. Then you bring your arm here, make sure that you put the pin through that, or else you'll have to redo this. Now use that key on the bottom to line up the hole correctly. Once it's lined there, you can push the pin through and take out the key. And now we will put the blade back in. If you have not greased this, definitely grease it at this point since you have it open, and just slide it through the back side, just like that. Make sure that the pins are going through the other arm. You can have your pin with one of the clips already installed, push it through, and then make sure pins are through the arm on the back side, and then apply the E-clips. And just make sure that when you're putting this back together, you have the pinch arms installed again. So again, make sure that the lower band guide hole is lined up correctly. Make sure your tension wheel is centered. Line the 3 holes up, and then place the pin through. And now put the cover back on. And lastly, put the cover on. Now we are going to replace the tension and backing wheel. We recommend replacing this at 50,000 cycles. That is also the number of cycles that you would use to replace the blade, so we recommend doing those at the same time. To start with, we will remove the side cover with the 9/64 hex. Remove the clip, pull the pin out, and you can drop the pinch arms. Now we will remove the motor from the tool. It's recommended to use a T-handle, but you can use just a normal 3mm Allen key and then use pliers to provide the additional torque needed to break it. It is critical that once you remove these, you apply Loctite on the new screws. Remove the 3 screws, the motor falls away, and the tension wheel comes out. You can leave the screws just sitting in there if that's easier, or you can turn the tool so that the screws fall out. We will also remove the backing wheel. So push the pin out, and the backing wheel will slide out. Grab your new backing wheel, and then repeat the process. When you are using a new backing wheel, apply grease onto the pin, or you can use the Zerk fitting. You can swing the bottom band guide out of the way to make it easier to get that pin through, but just make sure to line it back up before assembly. So now we've replaced the backing wheel. Now we will take our new tension wheel and we will have to line it up with the tool. So this fits right on there, but you will have to place the tension wheel inside of the tool. So how this works is you get it about halfway, and then you will line up the tension wheel with the drive shaft. Once that's lined up, make sure that your bearing sits in there, just like that. You will want the drive shaft and bearing flush against this face. That back bearing can get cockeyed, which causes it to not seat properly. So just make sure that is in the correct location. Once you have done that, line up the holes so that your motor is in the proper orientation, and then grab your screws, apply Loctite, and then put them back in. What's recommended right here is that you put your screw like this, and then you push down so that it goes into the hole, as opposed to try to slowly put it in there. There's a good chance you'll drop the screw and have to make sure all the screws are snug, and then you have replaced that. So again, once we've done that, recommend replacing the knife at the same time. So refer to the previous section about greasing and removing the knife on how to do that. So now that we have our backing wheel and our tension wheel replaced, make sure that the hole is lined up, slide it in there, make sure that the tension wheel is centered to allow the pinch arms to seat properly, and then we'll put our pin through. And then put the clip on. now put the side cover on. And lastly, put the front cover back in its place. And there you have it, the IT8000 maintenance video.